To be a military superpower, you need a couple of things: a continuous standing army, the ability to deploy and sustain large-scale military operations, and being more technologically superior than your adversaries. Today it'd be hard to argue against the United States of America. So why is America seen as the world's military superpower? A great example of this is a place in Iraq called Mosul, a once peaceful town that was taken over by ISIS June 10, 2014. Iraqi forces were overwhelmed and it would take nearly 3 years to take the city back. And it most likely wouldn't have happened until
American airstrikes pounding ISIS, the Iraqis nearing the key city of Mosul.
In late 2016, American-led air and artillery strikes bombed ISIS into submission. Their leader fled, while Iraqi forces took the city back street by street. The city of Mosul was once again back in the hands of its people. America's advanced land, air, and space superiority was no match for the less equipped force. The cohesion of all its military assets is what makes America a true military superpower. But this isn't the first time this city has been at the heart of a conflict, or even the first time it's been totally destroyed. Nor is Mosul even its first name. Through the ages, it's been known as Al-Mosul, Al-Faya, Mepsila, and finally Nineveh, the capital of the world's first military superpower, the Assyrian Empire. Before Iraq, this region was known as Mesopotamia. This place was home to some of the oldest civilizations that we know of today. The Sumerians, which are believed to have been the first ever civilization. There was also the Akkadians, which are credited of being the first empire. Then eventually the Assyrians, who built the most powerful military the world had ever seen. And they conquered and ruled through the ages for about 1500 years. At its height, it stretched from Egypt to Turkey and from Syria to Iran. I have to put in perspective how old this empire is. We are closer to the building of the Colosseum than the Assyrians are from having their first independent state. I'm talking nearly 4,000 years ago. Assyria began as a small kingdom originating in the city of Assur around 2900 to 2700 BC. At this time, they were surrounded by rivals like the Mitannies, the Hittites, the Egyptians, and even the Babylonians. At this time, war was mostly seasonal. Plant the crops in the fields, march off for war while it grows, and be back for harvest, and repeat the cycle year on year. Not a very effective way to control your kingdom when it's constantly in revolt. But in 1300 BC, a high priest known as Ashur-uballit took the title of king and introduced traditions of military campaigns, forming a year-round professional army with specialized units and commanders. So for the next 100 years, Assyria expanded into a true empire, but their expansion would come to a screaming halt. Ice core and tree ring data reveal extended periods of mega droughts and cooling in the Mediterranean. These severe climate shifts devastated agriculture, leading to widespread famine and mass migration of desperate refugees. Assyria contracted into a smaller form, but many empires around it crumbled completely to dust. The Hittites, the Mitannies, and the Mycenaean Greeks, which only years before conquered their enemies at Troy. Though Assyria, mainly unscathed, took advantage of this weakness of old empires, and over the next few hundred years they expanded their borders tenfold. Their military innovations and their adoption of one thing would change warfare forever. The process of smelting iron and forging had been mastered over centuries, and Assyria was in the perfect position to take advantage. They started using iron for tools, weapons, and armor, giving them huge advantage in production and on the battlefield. Even though iron was a massive advantage, it still didn't solve the problem of conquering cities like Babylon, with high walls and overwhelming defenses. Usually would try to sneak into the city, or you would wait outside the defenders' walls until they either surrendered or starved. So around 900 BC, Assyrian engineers created large advanced siege engines. Massive battering rams and siege towers were built on the battlefield outside the defenders' walls. They also dug tunnels into cities to sneak in without having massive losses to their army. Most civilizations at the time still used chariots, but the wide adoption of cavalry was revolutionary for the time. Over the next 3 centuries, Assyria expanded into the largest empire the world had ever seen, reigned by some of the most famous kings, like Tiglath-Pileser III, who transformed Assyria's army into a highly organised professional military and centralised the empire. Others like King Sennacherib, who made Nineveh the new capital of Assyria, and the greatest of all, Ashurbanipal. The Assyrians also innovated off the battlefield. The first universities and libraries, including the Library of Ashurbanipal, a treasure trove consisting of more than 30,000 clay tablets, written in their native tongue of Akkadian, and also the more ancient language of Sumerian. These tablets were written from information collected from all over the empire, and even distant lands. The oldest aqueduct we know of was built in the time of King Sennacherib near Nineveh, nearly 400 years before the Romans built their first. This is also why the speculation that one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, was actually built in Nineveh by King Sennacherib and not by King Nebuchadnezzar II in Babylon as originally thought. The cohesion of their military, their technology, and their vast expansionist traditions is what makes Assyria the world's first true military superpower. But like all great empires at the time, they had a fiery and dramatic end. Around 620 BC, King Ashurbanipal had passed away, the last true ruler of the Assyrians. After him, Ashurbanipal II came to power, but succession disputes fractured the royal court. Rival clans fought for control. Provincial governors began to test the empire's authority. Sensing weakness, old enemies saw an opportunity. Babylon had risen from the ashes, and with the help of the Medes from the east, they prepared for war. The massive coalition, estimated of being somewhere between 60 to 120,000 troops, marched on the capital of Nineveh. They encircled the city. The walls eventually were breached. The city burned and looted from thousands of troops flooding the streets. The grand palaces were destroyed, and the once mighty seated power of the Assyrian Empire was razed to the ground. Over a millennia of Assyrian influence was finished, never to rise again. Today, the ruins of Nineveh lie near modern-day Mosul, remnants of a truly great piece of our past. The Assyrians believed they had built an empire that would endure forever. Instead, they became a reminder written across history itself that no throne is permanent, no empire eternal, and no civilization is beyond the reach of time.